Hello everybody. I know I said I wasn't going to make another JoJo video, but the Dragon Ball Z video I had planned essentially would have taken way too long, so we're back. So anyway, I've noticed something because, well, the worst thing about quarantine is that your family starts getting into all the things that you're into, so now my dad, who almost legally qualifies for Boomer, is starting to get into JoJo's Part 3. Now, during this rewatch of Part 3, originally I thought it was nothing special, just your typical AD story. But then, it dawned upon me. Alright, Dio changes a lot in JoJo. He goes from essentially a standard mustache-twirling villain, and the best part of Part 1 in my opinion, to essentially a complex man who wants to achieve heaven, and he wants to achieve heaven so that way he could rule every single world. Fitting enough. And I noticed how that mirrors Diavolo, the main villain of Part 5. Mainly because Dio means God in Italian and Latin, and diavolo or diavolo means devil. And I mean, it's weird how they are exact opposites of each other. Have you really thought about that? They are exact opposites of each other. It's weird because Dio, I mean, if we're going off of color theory, Dio dresses in the manga in all yellow. And now it's thought that he had done this to contrast Jotaro's colors in the manga, but I like this because yellow shows off charismatic, people who like to, show off. Or Diavolo always dresses in purple, pink, and red. All colors that show intense passion and anger, which reflects him incredibly well. Also, those colors are kind of opposites. So I thought that was a bit strange. Also, when you look at their stand abilities, spoilers for Part 3 and Part 5, Dio's ability is to stop time, essentially prolong it so that he could do an attack, and it's incredibly overpowered, as you might guess, especially combined with his vampire super strength. Diavolo's ability is to erase time. They're the exact opposite of each other. So, I found that interesting. Also, in the way that they're presented, Dio always boasts about how, especially when he's been beaten down, how he is always victorious, and why he is destined to rule the world, and how he is incredibly a charismatic, mustache-twirly villain, and that's why a lot of us love him. Whereas Diavolo, the only time he ever talks about how he is so great is when he has the stand arrow, when he knows he could win. That's the only time he really seems happy to call himself Diavolo, or Japanese butchering of Italian names. So other things being that they both have mental illness. Dio is pretty sociopathic, psychopathic, whereas Diavolo has a split personality, and I like that because it shows that in fact, I'm gonna go into Diavolo's backstory, so if there wasn't a spoiler warning at the beginning of this video, here's it right now. See, Diavolo his birth is really ambiguous because the whole point is that we're not supposed to know his past, which but essentially he was going to be taken in as a holy man. Now, but this all stopped when he found his mother and decided to bury her under his house. And then he burnt down the village. Essentially, just Lucifer did. Well, sort of like how Lucifer did. Lucifer rejected God and sought to do his own thing. I find that interesting because whereas Dio sees to become king, a lawful hierarchy, a hierarchy that is grounded in the law, Diavolo sees to become a primo mafioso, an unlawful hierarchy, a hierarchy that isn't lawful. So, like, you know. Also, very cool shit. You know, also, you know, we know barely nothing about Diavolo's past, where we know everything about Dio's past. We know that he was abused by his father, that he was thought of as nothing but a poor boy, and that drove him, essentially, to despise Jonathan Joestar. It drove him to, essentially, the madness at the... You know, because originally his plan was to kill the rich kid and get rich. Then it was to conquer England and then the world, which would have been amazing alternate history, but then, you know, the worst JoJo had to stop it, so thanks, Jonathan. Oh yeah, there's another thing. In part 3, there's this character who's introduced, Jean-Pierre Polnareff. He's my favorite character in the entire series, because not only does he show incredible character development, whereas he only wanted to travel with the group, or like to kill this one guy, he then becomes loyal. He's also a goofster, and is like the funniest character in part 3, and he also helps out the part 5 gang, so like, pretty cool. But like, something weird that I noticed is that Dio always talks to Polnareff with great admiration. When Dio first offers Polnareff to be by his side, he says, "Would you like to be friends with me?" Now, granted, that's incredibly creepy, but like, where Diavolo met him and essentially just started beating the shit out of him. Dio, even at the end of part 3, where Polnareff has made up his mind. In fact, I like this because his stand's name is Silver Chariot, the Chariotero being the man who sees God. You know, Dio meaning God. And in fact, I love the whole scenery of that scene. Like, you know, Dio's at the top of the staircase and Polnareff's at the middle of it. Dio offers him, essentially saying, "Hey, you're very talented. I would like you to be at my side." And he knew Polnareff was going to say no, and then he decides to troll Polnareff. Him decidedly what is the best scene in part 3, but, you know, Polnareff refuses. And mainly because Dio's a massive asshole, but yeah. And then later on, when Polnareff attacks Dio in the Jotaro-Dio fight, Dio even admires him, saying, "That attack could have killed me." Like, it's weird how he has admiration for a guy who he considers beneath him. Part 1, Dio wouldn't have done that. It also... oh, shit. This is going to be a long-ass video. The more I think about this, the deeper it goes. Polnareff, again, top of this, in a very similar scene in part 5. Diavolo runs up the stairs with his time skip, whereas Dio uses his time stop to put Polnareff back down the stairs. So, I very much appreciated that. Also, again, Diavolo treats Polnareff with complete hatred, whereas Dio, again, treats him like he's a friend. Very similar shit. And I also noticed how, and yeah, this video is going to get really religious, so if you're not into that type of stuff, then fuck off. In the Bible, talked about the OG shit. Essentially, it's split up into 2 testaments, the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament is where all the Hebrew stories about God, and God is depicted as a cruel figure who enacts acts of revenge and hatred towards the people who despise the Jews, which is very reminiscent of Dio in part 1. He acts toward utter and total hatred to all those he considers beneath him. Anyone which would be humanity in part 1, until someone was able to convince him otherwise, Jonathan Joestar. And in part 3, he is more kind. Which is weird, because like a lot of people are like, why doesn't he use zombies in part 3? It's because he no longer views himself above anyone else. His defeat in part 1 allowed him to see that not only are humans as strong as vampires, but they are equal to vampires. It allowed him to see beyond that, and it allowed him to control the world. So, I find that incredibly interesting, where, again, Diavolo acts with incredible disdain towards anyone who who betrays him, like Bruno Bucciarati's group. And it's weird because it also mirrors the Bible, whereas in the Bible, Jesus and Satan have a battle to free the souls from hell. It strangely mirrors the whole like point where Satan goes to hell for the first time, because when Giorno beats Diavolo, he sends him into an infinite time, like an infinite death loop, essentially mirroring what hell would be like. He feels all of the pain, but he's never able to die. So, I mean, again, incredibly interesting. Oh shit, You know what? I'll talk about cards in another video. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button. If you don't want any more religious content, talk about why Mormonism is the best, and spam Scientology in my comment section. And if you wanted that Dragon Ball Z video, too fucking bad. Peace.
Zawarudo. Stop time. Tee hee hee hee. Bouncy bounce. I'm going to slap you with a big piece of metal, you ho. Time to pound you flat. You bitch ass excuse for a YouTuber. Muda 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 muda. Time for you to meet the fucking ass-faced loser that made you. Muda Yeah gamers, I did it. Now no shitty Beyblade channels will compare DIO to any shithead mafiosos. Tee hee hee hee. Now I can spend the rest of my life watching hentai and nobody can stop me, hee hee.